The midweek edition of lcpioneers.com live Wednesday show as we move into week 9 of our Tuesday through Friday 11:30 a.m. live show on Facebook, lcpioneers.com live, to keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members of the Lewis and Clark College community at broadcasting live and archived youtube.com/lcpios. Hope you're enjoying hopefully warmer weather where you are. Certainly it's been nice in Northwest Oregon as we roll into the final days, in fact, of May. I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark College. We are a Division III NCAA institution competing in Northwest Oregon as part of the Northwest Conference against schools from Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and nationwide with over 430 institutions throughout NCAA Division III nationwide, and with Lewis and Clark's fantastic overseas study program opportunities for our student athletes and students alike to experience the world through curriculum and overseas study opportunities. We invite you to connect with us, LC Pioneers, on Twitter and Instagram, in the comments below on Facebook Live, as well as through email sports@lclark.edu. In just a few minutes, we will introduce our guest, or actually join our guest, Sam Taylor. He's the head coach, longtime head coach of the Pioneers rowing programs. He's been in charge of Pio's crew for a very long time and is a Portland native originally from the area. Has an opportunity to kind of give a glimpse into why Portland is such a unique place for student athletes to come and spend their 4 years getting an undergraduate degree and also competing in small college athletics. So interested in his perspective too, because over just even 16 years as a head coach, let alone being from Portland originally, he's had a chance to see Portland grow into a really amazing city for young people. It's a place that is definitely, top five on many of those lists that you see out there, and we'll get his take on why that's a good fit for many people in terms of where they choose to go to college. Do want to bring your attention to a couple of things. lcpioneers.com is the place to read currently about the all sportsmanship team announced by the Northwest Conference last week. They choose a student athlete from each of their conference sponsored sports, and in conjunction with the head coaches and the teams, someone who's shown exemplary sportsmanship in terms of the 2019-20 year, and they are named all sportsmanship. You can check that out right now at lcpioneers.com. Also invite you to find all of our old shows on our YouTube playlist. That's youtube.com/lcpios. That's where you can find all of that information. And on our Twitter, LC Pioneers, we've been sharing some different things currently, including student support services. Dr. K, who is a former member of the athletics department, is doing something kind of cool called the SSS Scoop. Just going to be looking for summer tips that she can share regarding everything from academic ways to keep yourself prepared for the fall semester over the summer. And then she also promises some ice cream tips, which, I think is always fun. Lewis and Clark is just down the street from Salt and Straw, which is like a huge ice cream place in the Portland area. They have two locations, but down in Lake Oswego. So ice cream is definitely a topic on campus, including in the Bone too. They have ice cream available at every meal. That was a requirement when they did the remodel of the Bone, which is the main place to eat on campus. So ice cream definitely a topic for sure. Also, if you go to LC Pioneers on Twitter, we've been sharing some quotes from people from the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership. Different alumni who have made kind of a mark in terms of entrepreneurship. Larry Mellum is the most recent one we shared. He's a former football alumnus, or former football student athlete who's an alumni of Lewis and Clark, and he owns Pike Place Chowder in the Seattle area. And it was neat to see kind of his remarks as well. So be sure to check that out. That's at LC Pioneers on Twitter. So let's bring in our guest. He is the head coach of Lewis and Clark rowing, both the men's and women's programs for 16 years now. He's entering his 16th season as the head coach of those programs. We bring in Sam Taylor on lcpioneers.com live. Hi, Sam. Happy Wednesday to you. We hope that your summer is kind of off to a nice start and what has been a really odd finish to a spring semester that kind of took away from your team's opportunity to compete in the primary way it does. Let's get a take from a coach. How did you adjust to the spring semester? How your team was able to stay together? If you can kind of give us an overview.
Yeah, no, it was a different spring for sure, and I think one of the things I told both our athletes and a lot of recruits and other people's, about the only thing that made it bearable was the fact that pretty much everyone else was dealing with the exact same thing. So it wasn't it was a shared experience, which I think helps. But certainly, I think for us, the first 2 weeks, I think it was the week before spring break, and then into spring break, I think we were just trying to figure out what to do, and sort of take a step back while all of our students mostly went home. Some stayed on campus, some stayed in the houses they had here in Portland, but most people went home and adjusted to doing class online. And as coaches, as a staff, we were sort of sitting around going, well, what do we do now? And what we ended up coming up with was sort of two things. I think the first one was just doing something we normally do in person on campus and just checking in on our athletes. And I think we pride ourselves on trying to make sure that we talked about the whole athlete, right, and not just that their ability in a boat or on an erg, but also their ability, their worth as a person and their success in the classroom. And we felt like we normally try to make sure that we have a conversation with all of our athletes, just a quick check-in, how you doing, what's going on, how are classes, just as part of our daily routine, whether that's in the office or at practice or when we see someone on campus. And so as a coaching staff, we dedicated ourselves, we split the group up and made sure that a coach was checking in on every athlete every week. And for the most part, I think our athletes did really well, but certainly it was good to be able to talk to some people who were going through some struggles and try to get, help or offer advice or just be someone to talk to. And so I think that was the first thing. And it was powerful. And it was interesting to hear. I think we learned a lot more about the people in a way you don't when they're on campus. And then the second thing we did was, due to various quirks of rules and things, we had the ability to get some feedback about training and working out. And so we set up a fitness challenge. And again, with that same split of every coach was assigned about a third of the team, and had a whole fitness regimen of like, this workout is this many points, and if you do this, it's points, and if you do this, it's points. Tried to make it fun, and then tried to make it competitive, and had some low key prizes at the end of it, and did about 4 weeks where we were able to talk to them about the training they were doing at home, which took a lot of forms because people have different access and different facilities available to them, and most as a facility might be your garage and a bag of sand, but that's a facility in itself. And so that was kind of a fun thing. It was a way to stay kind of competitive within the group, and I found it really motivating for me when we would see on our Slack, which is a messaging page. You'd see the kids post. Oh, see, I've been trying to stop calling them kids. See our athletes posting their workouts. It got me working out, right? Like it got me like, oh hey, these 10 people all did a workout today. I got to get out there. I got to go do something. So I think that was kind of our response, was to try to focus a lot on the things we could do in a pretty limited situation.
And we had the opportunity through our Instagram to share some of the best moments of the year during the virtual LCs that we did. And in the absence of being able to compete in the spring, you really pointed to the orange and black regatta, which is an inter squad scrimmage that you do in the
Yeah.
fall. Why did that stand out as kind of that highlight of the year?
I think, for us, again, we kind of went back and forth about a bunch of stuff, and we didn't have a spring season. We had one very small scrimmage in the spring. We were 2 days away from our first race when the NCAA shut down championships and the Northwest Conference shut down practice and competitions. And so we started thinking about, again, as a coaching staff, we talk a lot, and we started thinking a lot about the things that we value, and the things that are important to us. And the orange versus black we've done at the end of the fall season. I think this is the 6th year. I'd have to go back and look. And it really started as it was a way to bring the team together, especially in the fall. We have our novice athletes, our first year walk-on athletes, are pretty separate from the varsity athletes who are coming back. And so we wanted to find a way to make sure that those two groups had a little bit more integration. And we wanted to find a way to do something that was really end the whole fall season on a really high note. And so what we do for the orange versus black is like all the kids did it again. All the athletes are split either as the orange team or the black team. That includes the men, the women, the varsity, the novice, whatever it is. They have captains of those teams, and the captains, get to make all the lineups. So the lineups are who goes in what boat, and normally the coaches do lineups. And those lineups are different. Like normally you'd have your men's varsity eight. It's the eight best guys in your program, and this will be like it's okay. This is an eight, and you have to have two novice and two varsity and three men and four women. Like it's all mixed up, right? And then we race 750-meter pieces, very short. We do 2 or 3 races with each group, and there's a bunch of points. But then the thing that makes it fun is that the coaches are the committee, right? That gets to score the thing, and we take bribes. So the athletes will try to bribe us with cake and whatever it is. One of them gave my daughter candy, but then it was too much candy, so you lose points for that. And it's a good time. Like it's 3 or 4 hours. This was on a Friday afternoon this year. There was lots of joking, lots of trash talking, positive trash talking, and lots of just messing around. And the thing I took away from it was our athletes throw themselves into it. They have a ton of enthusiasm for that event. They think it's really fun. They are competitive. They want to win, and I think that's really valuable. But it's also it's learning how to compete against your teammates in a way that makes the whole program better. And I think that's an underlying piece of our team culture that we take really seriously. I think it's really important to be competitive, but competition at its best makes you a better competitor, but it also makes your competitors better. It's not about tearing people down. Like it's about racing people at their best and trying to beat them when they're at their best. And I think that event it was all about doing that in a way that was positive and exciting and fun and entertaining. And that's really what we try to have our whole program embody. So that was why that was our choice for that particular moment of the year.
Sam Taylor joining us on lcpioneers.com live Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 on Facebook Live, archived youtube.com/lcpios. Sam, let's elaborate on team culture. What is it that you tell, incoming student athletes who join your team, and even those that you find that maybe weren't going to be rowing at the beginning of the fall semester, but as you recruit the novices, what is it about that team culture that you kind of put at the top of your bullet points?
Yeah, I think I think the first thing is it's athlete focused, right? That we are not a program, and I think this applies for a lot of our sports. And we try to go win races. We try to compete. We want to beat other schools. I think that's something that's sort of the basic part of athletics. But when it comes down to it, the core of what we do it's not really measured in the wins and losses. The core of what we do is measured in the daily practice and experience that you have. For us, it's on the water or in the erg room or in the weight room. And it's really about the focus on the athlete and how do you improve a person athletically, but also what that means as part of a larger development. And I think that when it comes down to it, a lot of what we're about is trying to use the medium of rowing to teach people about how to succeed in life. And I think that we talk a lot with people about time management and discipline and focus, teamwork, leadership, and following, right? And how to be a good follower when that's necessary too. How to contribute to something bigger than yourself. And so we talk about all those aspects of how success comes about. And I think that when we do that well, what we get are athletes who are better athletes, but hopefully also better people. And I think that's really one of the things I try to focus on. When I talk to recruits or when I talk to walk-ons, I say, look, my hope is that by participating in this sport on this team, that you are going to come out of it better prepared to be an awesome person in real life, right? So we talk a lot about the idea of being an awesome teammate and what that means. And then, if you're an awesome teammate, you're going to be a pretty great coworker and hopefully a pretty great partner and a pretty great friend. Like, I think all of those things are integral.
And then you have this setting. Oaks Park is where the boathouse is, the Willamette River,
Yep.
and I mean, every day in practice, your rowers are getting some of the best views of the Portland area, in my
Yep.
opinion. What is it about that setting that is kind of special, especially from a rowing perspective?
Yeah, well, I think to any of the rowers who are out there, the water's great. We have good conditions, and we almost never have to cancel practice due to weather, which I think is huge. But just, I mean, as you mentioned, I'm a Portland guy. I grew up here. I think to me, the natural beauty of the Willamette River is pretty exceptional. We are very fortunate that the river has, over the last 30 years, had a lot of cleanup. It's actually, it's perfectly safe to swim in during the summer. The wildlife is incredible. I was out paddling yesterday on the river. I saw bald eagles, I saw sea lions and deer. I've seen otter. We have osprey all the time. Like it's a beautiful natural setting, but you are also like we'll come around the corner from the Holgate Channel, which is behind Ross Island, and again, like you're just in the middle of nature, in the middle of sort of a forested island area, and then you come around the corner and there's downtown Portland, all the bridges and everything about the city, and it's spectacularly beautiful. And we're very fortunate in Oaks Park to have a little bit of an esoteric boathouse in the middle of a 120-year-old amusement park, which is kind of a trip, but um, they've been incredible hosts, and it's a pretty amazing partnership that we have with that community as well.
He's Sam Taylor joining us on lcpioneers.com live, head rowing coach for Lewis and Clark, entering his 16th year leading the Pioneers. And you're originally from Portland. That's one thing that I always like to touch on because you've seen this evolution of a city, but this still really has kind of the in between of a major metropolitan area, which is increasingly growing, admittedly,
Yeah.
and then also still kind of has some of those small town feels, especially with the advantage of Lewis and Clark's campus
Yeah.
because it does feel isolated up on the hill. What is it about Portland that you think it offers students that maybe is more unique than a lot of other collegiate settings?
Yeah, I think. I think it's just a fantastic city. I think it's a fantastic city to live in, and I think it's a fantastic city to go to school in. I think, the culture, the food, the views, the access to nature. I mean, certainly, I'm an outdoors kind of guy. I was up on Mount Hood and I was out in the Columbia River Gorge just this weekend. It's what we have access to so close by, and is really pretty unique. And I think one of the other things, getting into the political wonk thing, that's incredible about Portland is that they have done the city over time has done an incredible job of keeping the city and keeping the wild the wild. And I think whether it's the parks that are available just close by that you can walk out of your dorm at Lewis and Clark and be in Tryon Creek Park 5 minutes later and down in the forest. It's an amazing thing to have access to. And I live about a mile from campus, and I take advantage of that as well. And then but also the access to just downtown and everything that's available. The food carts are always worth plugging. So the food that's available in the food cart pods, and the fact that you can hop on a bus with a bicycle and basically get to anywhere in the city without needing to drive is pretty incredible. So I think that what we have is really just it's a very livable space, and I think that's true whether you're a college student or as I am now, an old man.
Over the summer, I'm curious, from a coaching perspective too, how do you refresh? What's been keeping you busy over the summer months so far? Or what will keep you busy over the summer months, I should say?
Yeah, no, well, family for one thing. I think we have a 7-year-old daughter, so I'm pretty busy just from that. And as you know, and then I think for me it's outdoors. I do a lot of paddling. I do a lot of fishing. Go hiking with my family. We're going to try to go camping as soon as campgrounds open up. I think in theory Oregon's opening on June 9th, and we have a reservation on the 10th. So we'll see how it goes. And I think for me it's the natural spaces, whether that's close in or far out. I think that's what the best part about Oregon and Portland area is access to what's outside.
So are you doing a tent or you got something better?
This is the leading question. I fantasize about a camper van, but we haven't had a chance to buy one. So yeah, mostly just tent camping.
Yeah, you got to get those camper vans. I mean,
Yeah.
you could be doing an Instagram blog before you know it. We'll have Sam
I
Taylor
would
around
say
the
walk
country.
away from coaching and start my van life. That's what
There
it's
you
all
go.
about.
Well, we certainly appreciate your program. We certainly appreciate your 16 years on Palatine Hill or entering your 16th. Congratulations on that. And I can't wait to see you back in the offices, hopefully sooner than later at Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, that would be good. It would be nice to get out of the house.
He's Sam Taylor joining us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I like Sam a lot. He's a fellow Zentbauer Swimming Pavilion office. The layout of athletics at Lewis and Clark, the office space. There's Pamplin Sports Center, which houses the vast majority of the offices, and then there's about 4 or 5 offices on the swimming pavilion side in Zentbauer. And Sam's just 2 doors, 3 doors down from me. So it's weird. We're talking over 2.5 months removed from really the last time we had shared office space, which is kind of a bummer, but certainly looking forward to when we can all get back up to Palatine Hill and enjoy that special setting that we talk so much about with Lewis and Clark. So big thanks to Sam for joining us. And rowing team, really enjoy seeing the student athletes who compete for rowing throughout campus. The way that they work so hard. I mean, they'll have practices throughout the day. I mean, I know the coaches sometimes are up as early as 5 in the morning and finishing as late as 7 at night. There's a lot of dedication that goes into that sport that definitely deserves recognition, but also tremendously accommodating culture in terms of the way that the coaches approach that, as Sam kind of talked about. But I know they're in charge of getting people from campus across the Selwood Bridge over to Oaks Park for practice. So they have just these extra steps that a lot of our student athletes don't have, and to have that kind of passion and team camaraderie that they do, it really shows kind of that bonding experience, and that's why the regattas are such a huge part. When I ask rowing student athletes or even the coaches about the year, the regattas always stand out, and so it's not really a surprise that in the absence of not having any of their spring regattas, especially Wira, which is a 2-day event that closes out the season for the rowing programs down in Sacramento, that I understand is just a sight to behold. The orange versus black intra squad scrimmage, the regatta there, it's not really a surprise to me that that kind of stood out as a key thing. So I really appreciate Sam talking to us about that. So, yeah, it was a fun conversation with him. And we have more guests coming up still this week, 2 more shows before we get into the weekend. Really looking forward to tomorrow as we bring back a recent alumnus of Lewis and Clark. Ray Adia will join us. He is a former men's tennis 4-time first team All Northwest Conference selection and just graduated from the Babson Graduate School for Entrepreneurship. So we're going to talk to him about some of his future goals and just seeing how Lewis and Clark prepared him for one of the top entrepreneurship programs at a graduate level in the nation. And then Peyton Romo, who's a rising junior for women's basketball. She'll join us on Friday to round out our week. And then we go into more tennis with Macavivas next week. Owen Defner, who just finished his freshman season for men's cross country. And in between, going to talk about college outdoors with Tom Lehman. And that's important because, again, you just get this initial feedback from students at Lewis and Clark, and you ask them, hey, what's some of the things that you enjoy outside of athletics, outside of academics? And many of them are saying, I want to get more involved with the outdoor program. I want to do more trips. There's a lot of opportunity when you join Lewis and Clark for your first year to do new student trips. And I mean, we just have so much feedback as a campus about how impactful those new student trips are to their level of enjoyment of that freshman year, really getting involved early, and college outdoors plays a huge part in that. So that's just 3 of our guests next week. Also planning to talk to Tim McCrory, who's the head coach of men's basketball. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to Raid tomorrow. Friday, looking forward to talking to Peyton. And big thanks again to Sam for joining us on this edition of lcpioneers.com Live. Until we talk to you again tomorrow, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. For more lcpioneers.com Live, watch all of our past shows, youtube.com/lcpios. Until Thursday. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts, because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.